Now, the first few weeks when you're doing that and focusing on the show with the Google Trends, though, there's a lot of information coming out from the government fast and furiously about, what they are saying happened here. This is what it is. This is, there were texts with Tyler Robinson, his alleged lover. By the way, his lover was trans. There's that angle here. He wrote this stuff on the bullets. What was standing out to you, again, outside the trends right away that you're like, what the fuck? That doesn't make sense, like from the jump?
It's hard to dissociate the Google Trends analysis I was doing, because the Lance Twiggs thing was always suspect, because Lance Twiggs was a far more persistent result on Google Trends for a much longer period of time than Tyler James Robinson was.
Really?
Yeah, overseas and in District of Columbia. He would pop up from time to time going back to when he was a teenager, 16, 17 years old. You would see him with his full name, Lance Tyler Twiggs, and Lance Twiggs.
How old was he now in 2025?
I don't know, 22 maybe,
Okay.
3. So
So
you're
several
talking,
years.
Yeah, like 2021, 22, it starts popping up.
Interesting.
And my thought in this is, how do you become a patsy? I think there are hundreds of thousands of available patsies at any given moment. Probably because people are looking up stuff online they shouldn't be looking up. They're saying things in Discord chats they shouldn't be saying. They're trying to meet up with people they shouldn't be meeting up with, primarily young people. And so you end up with this pool of available people that any one of them would rather go to prison for accessory to a murder than what they're trying to do online. And so it's hard to segregate those two things in my mind. It's hard to take the story of Tyler Robinson that we're being fed without the Lance Twiggs component, being this persistent, showing up, looking to me like a federal operator, or at least an asset of some sort from the very beginning, from his late teenage years. And, then the stories come out that his parents were having a lot of problems with him, and, his grandparents were having problems with him, and,
Twiggs.
Twiggs, yeah. And so it looks like you have a problem child who's chronically online, who's obviously sexually disturbed. God knows what his internet search history looked like. God knows what kind of Discord groups and Reddit pages he was looking at, and all kinds of other stuff. A guy like that is ripe, we can offer you a way out of this. And so I sort of always took it from that perspective. That's sort of what made me start to be skeptical of the whole story from the beginning, is the Lance Twiggs component, not the Tyler Robinson component.
That's interesting. So you were pulling onto that more. Was there a thought there early on where you're like, damn, I wonder if Tyler Robinson even did this altogether?
Yes. I was willing to accept he did it initially. I kind of took it at face value.
Why'd you take it at face value?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a mute. I don't know if you've ever watched me. I cough a lot.
That's all right. Yeah. I've seen you do it.
It's just part of me. So I have a mute button that I've installed, and I use it a lot. But I was willing to accept Tyler did it, but I was willing to accept he was set up to do it.
Set up to do it.
Like he was not brainwashed, but pushed, radicalized, nudged. We got to do something. He's coming on campus. This is our chance. You're the guy. You got the gun. You know how to shoot. That kind of thing. I kind of always associated Lance Twiggs with a setup from the beginning, and I associated Lance Twiggs with a kind of an asset aspect from the beginning, and so it was easy for me to see kind of that two steps to Tyler Robinson. It wasn't until I sort of got fascinated with watching people try to recreate the shot, a 30-06 shot, and they were shooting absolutely everything. And, Green Beret podcasters and sniper podcasters saying this is not a 30-06. It had to hit body armor. It had to have hit something else. It had to be a lower caliber round. It had to come from a different direction. There's no way a 30-06 from that direction did this damage. It's impossible. And that's sort of what led me to, well, maybe there was something else. Maybe there was another person. Maybe it was Chris Martinson had that theory that he was shot with a lower caliber round from a different angle. And so I sort of ran down that rabbit hole for a while.
Did Chris have someone in the crowd that he could point to on that, or was he just basing it off what he could see ballistically?
No, he didn't. I don't think he ever pointed anyone in the crowd. I think he was thinking Sorensen center roof.
Okay.
Because that's the right angle to do the damage that was claimed.
So that's a different roof than the one that Tyler was allegedly on?
Yeah, so the Losi Center is pretty straight ahead. Maybe offset a degree or two. I think it was 9 degrees offset. The Losi Center roof is kind of to Charlie's, I don't know, 10 o'clock. Or no, not 10 o'clock. What is that? Whatever that is over there. Yeah, 10 o'clock. And that would be more of an angle because remember Andrew Kolvet came out with that tweet allegedly quoting the doctor saying that his...
Can we pull that tweet up, Dave? I love that one. Oh, my
his
God.
C1 through C6 were impacted.
It's a miracle.
Yeah. And so Martinson, I think, is trying to reconcile damage to the vertebrae with angle of a gun, the angle a gun would have had to come from in order to do that damage. And so he was sort of leaning towards the Losi Center. I was still thinking gunshot at the time. I mean, this was late September, early October, but I was sort of on the gunshot train, but not a 30-06 from the Losi Center again because all the ballistic experts, they were shooting thousands of things. I mean, they were shooting steel plates and cast iron skillets and stop signs, and they were shooting ham bones and ham hocks and necks and pigs and cows. I mean, they were shooting everything, and it was just blowing right through everything. And they were shooting it from 142 yards, and it would just blow through everything. And it would blow through the concrete block after it blew through everything. And so it never made sense to me that a bullet could arrive from the Losi Center at that angle, a 30-06 round, with that much energy, and stop in his neck within 3 inches?
Right. And but Deep just pulled up the tweet. This was from, I believe, September 20th, 2025, 10 days after the one you referenced with Andrew Kolvet. And when I did the podcast with Joseph Scott Morgan, we read this one out too, because even if somehow this were true, and to be clear, I don't believe this, it's like the fact that he wrote this whole thing out, presumably read it back to himself because the grammar looks good, so it seems like he edited it. And I don't know if he did the old rule my mom used to say, which is count to 5 before you press send. But the fact that he pressed send on this in a nation that was once told that a magic bullet went through fucking 40 different regions to somehow kill the president of the United States and thought this was not going to be taken the wrong way blows my mind from a just intellectual discourse level. But just to read it for people that have context so you understand what we were referring to, this was Andrew Kolvet on September 20th, 2025. He says, I want to address some of the discussion about the lack of an exit wound with Charlie. I'm usually not interested in delving into most of this kind of online chatter, and I apologize, this is somewhat graphic, but in this case, the fact that there wasn't an exit wound is probably another miracle, and I want people to know. I just spoke with the surgeon who worked on Charlie in the hospital. It's interesting from a HIPAA standpoint, but that's neither here nor there. He said the bullet, quote, absolutely should have gone through, which is very, very normal for a high-powered, high-velocity round. I've seen wounds from this caliber many times, and they always just go through everything. This would have taken a moose or two down, an elk, etc., unquote. But it didn't go through. Charlie's body stopped it. I mentioned to his doctor that there were dozens of staff, students, and special guests standing directly behind Charlie on the other side of the tent, and he replied, quote, it was an absolute miracle that someone else didn't get hit, unquote. Quote, his bone was so healthy and the density was so impressive that he's like the man of steel. It should have just gone through and through. It likely would have killed those standing behind him too, unquote. In the end, the coroner did find the bullet just beneath the skin. Even in death, Charlie managed to save the lives of those around him. Remarkable, miraculous.
Well, and I agree with him. It would have taken a miracle. He even admits, again, taking this at face value, which I don't take anything he says at face value. But if you take that at face value, the surgeon comes right out and says, hey, this doesn't happen. This a 30-06 doesn't stop in that little bit of soft tissue in the neck. It just doesn't happen. That's not a thing that happens. It's a miracle that it did. And so even that, you look at that and you say, okay, it wasn't a 30-06 to the neck. It couldn't have been. It would have gone through.
Would it matter? So what was the gun used here again? A Mauser? Is that right?
Yeah.
So when you're seeing all these different demonstrations from berets and snipers and stuff like that who are doing this, like qualified guys who are doing it online, were you seeing it with people using all different kinds of guns, including the gun or a similar one that was used here?
Yeah, they were using everything down to 223 up to a 30-06. And nobody knew at the time, was it a frangible round? Was it 150, 170 grain? Was it 180 grain? Nobody knew what it was. But they were committed to the 30-06 narrative. And it doesn't matter what you put in a 30-06, it's going through. I mean, Jesse on Fire and Heavy Duty Country did a demo with frangible rounds. These are frangible rounds from like the 1940s.
Can you explain that to people who don't understand guns and bullets out there?
Yeah, so a regular Full Metal Jacket round is designed not to break up. It's supposed to go through. A frangible round is designed to break up. It's supposed to hit something hard and stop. It stops redirection. It stops people, innocent bystanders from getting hit. And so it's it'll turn kind of to dust if it hits the right density of an object. But
can it like mushroom too and like?
So that you're thinking of kind of a soft point that will sort of mushroom when it hits. But no, I mean a frangible round typically is not going to mushroom.
Okay.
Full Metal Jacket can have a little mushrooming, but it's not designed really to do that. But yeah, I mean, it didn't matter what they threw at it. Anything they fired went through much thicker things than a neck, much denser bone than vertebrae. And so, instantly I began to doubt that narrative. And I'm thinking, okay, if it wasn't a 30-06 and it wasn't from the Losi Center, where did it come from? It had to be a gunshot, right? Where did this gunshot come from? And so I sort of ran down that rabbit hole for a while before you realize that rabbit hole doesn't hold much weight either. Because even a lot of the lower caliber rounds are going to pass right through that. I mean, it's just a neck is not that much tissue. It's soft,
As you're thinking about this at this point, where's your head going with what this was? Did you have any idea of like, in your opinion, what this could be or who might be behind it or things like that? Or was it too early?
No, it wasn't too early at all because, again, the Lance Twiggs component made me think there might be some sort of government aspect to it. I couldn't at the time think of why the government would want to kill Charlie Kirk. That didn't make sense to me. He'd been a huge friend of the president, rightly or wrongly credited with getting the president reelected. He was friends with the president's son. He was, business partners with the president's son. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if this is a government operation, it has to be rogue. It has to be something that is operating below the office of the president, but at a high enough level that you could actually pull this off. You're not going to get like a bunch of E5s out there like, let's kill Charlie Kirk,
right.
and run and do something. So, that's sort of where my mind was this was probably a domestic military operation, but below the office of the president.
Did you have a motive in mind or like a reason they would want Charlie Kirk gone?
The Iran War.
That was why.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of. He was pretty adamant, and a lot of the clips were starting to get replayed. The clip from the PBD podcast back in 2023.
I remember that when it came out.
Yeah, that was pretty devastating.
That was like, I would cite that to people at the time. I'm like, Charlie Kirk was saying this. I'm like, this is the most fucking, pro-Israel kind of dude ever saying this like 5 days after October 7th where he was talking about I've been to that Gaza border. I don't know how.
It wasn't only that, though. He seemed to have insider knowledge of the plan, looking back, because he said, I don't even want to use the word. He said, okay, I'll use
Ethnic cleansing.
They're going to ethnically cleanse it, And at the time, I thought, how can you ethnically cleanse Gaza? That's crazy. You'd have to either kill everyone or relocate everyone. That doesn't even make sense. But looking back, you go, oh, maybe he did know something. And maybe that knowledge, as he continued to turn and push harder on that subject, maybe that knowledge is what got him killed.
At the time, and this is a way different world then, but I remember watching that at the time, and when he did the and looked up to the sky like this, I was like, I wasn't even going where you just were with oh, maybe he knew something about it, but I was going, what is the weight behind that?
Yeah.
The weight of him just giving an opinion on this, saying, hey, I'm just throwing this out there. Don't shoot the messenger, but maybe it could be this. You could tell he was like, am I really going to fucking say this? Did I take enough Adderall today to fucking say this? And then he did.
Well, he looked up. He was recalling a conversation, in my opinion. He was recalling a conversation. He was looking up what words did he use? Okay, he used ethnically cleansing. That's how I took it.
Dark.
And then they tried in vain for 2 years to get him back on the team and weren't successful.
Here's the thing, though. He, from what I could see, and I'm just seeing social clips at the time, I can't say I'm the closest person watching Charlie Kirk while he's doing this, but I would see clips pop up of him doing things, not even on college campuses, but like at conferences and stuff like that. I'm talking in 24, 25, where like the Israel topic would come up and he would vociferously defend it. And we now can see from like some texts and stuff behind the scenes and conversations that were happening in what I've seen, especially until those recent texts that Candace put out, which I think is something we got to come back to, but like July 2025, August 2025, the Hamptons meeting, you know, when he did the thing with Dave Smith, and Dave Smith talks about what they talked about off stage before that debate at the end of July 2025. That's where you could start to see him at least like saying some things out loud on his show when you look at clips. But before then, after the PBD thing, what he thought privately is one thing, but everything he still did publicly, to me, was very much still like defending the shield here.
Yeah, until August. That's when he started dropping the mask a little bit. The Megyn Kelly interview, I think it was August 6th.
Yep. 2 days after the Hamptons thing.
Yeah. He that was the first time I recall him publicly dropping the mask after that PBD interview. And, you know, so in my mind, going back, you were asking me where I was in September, October. It wasn't an international operation, but I thought it probably had international okay because of the searches that originated from overseas.
And you were thinking, it's interesting though that early you were already thinking the Iran war, because again, the narrative, huge air quotes there, but the narrative at the time was, oh, we did that 12-day thing, we came in and bombed Florida, the nuclear, now you and I know this is like bullshit, but the nuclear stuff's gone, so we've stepped out and we're not going to war. And so in my head, I was like, yeah, I'll believe that when I see it. But at the same time, I will admit, I still wasn't thinking, like from that point, June 2025, I wasn't thinking sometime in the next 12 months, we're going to seriously be looking at boots on the ground, like as a real plan in Iran. And then that became like within 9 months, conveniently after Charlie's dead, they were already talking about it. Like, okay, we're starting a war now, and maybe we're going to put boots on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, but you knew, I knew, everybody in the lead up to the 12-day war, we all kind of had the same thought, or a lot of us on our side of that issue had the same thought, which was this is going to spiral out of control into World War III. You know, the Iranians are proud people. They're not just going to let people come in and bomb them and go, oh, okay, well, we're sorry, guys. Sorry about that. It had the potential and the capacity to get very ugly very quickly. And Charlie coming out talking about it in the way he did, it just, that's a problem. If you're going to go forward, that's a problem you have to deal with. You can't just leave that loose end hanging out there.
Why not deal with it earlier, though, if they knew that was already a thing he was thinking behind the scenes? The reason I ask that is because by the time, if it is alleged like they did deal with it, in September 2025, respectfully, the horse has left the barn. You look at people below 55 in this country, left, right, it's a very unifying issue. Like, what the fuck was he even going to do about it at that point? He was getting killed by his own people.
Well, we don't know that they didn't try. So, you know, the fact that something happened on September 10th doesn't mean that there wasn't a very similar operation in place in April, in December the year before that. Like, you can't say definitively this was the only time that they tried. And had they gone on September 10th and something went wrong and they called off the operation, you and I would not be sitting here talking about it. Maybe they would have done it September 29th or October 5th. You know, we don't know that this was the only time that he walked into a death circle and there was a plan to take him out. It could have been, but like, what if it had rained that day?
Right.
You know, if the plan is to take him out, you're not going to let a rain shower ruin it. You're going to just, okay, here's our backup plan. Here's the next place we're doing it. You know, it's not lost on me that all of his first events were like in Colorado and Utah. They're all right there together. So,
how prior to September 10th, when he was going back out on this tour publicly at colleges, you know, in the year before that, how good and deep, you know, by manpower was his security team everywhere he went? How much do we know about that?
I want to say Brian Harpole said they typically carried 6 with them. And that was on the Sean Ryan show. And I don't Don't quote me on that because maybe he said 5 or 7, but I want to say it was 6. Because I remember the impression it left with me after that show was that they had doubled his security for that day. And I think he said they had 12 or 13 people on the ground that day. And so that would be, I think, fairly average for him.
Now, obviously, he's not a president, so it's not a Secret Service team. It doesn't have, even if it's a deep security team, it doesn't have that kind of resources. But, from what you've been able to gather in the past, was there a protocol with any of his security teams when he would go do public events outdoors that were near roofs where they would scan some roofs and see if there were any security limitations on those?
I have no idea.
Okay. That'd be interesting to know if they'd ever done that.
I think it crossed their mind because multiple of them in the aftermath have commented on the fact that when he walked in, they looked up and saw the roofs and it made them uncomfortable. I can't imagine that was the first time it had dawned on anybody that roofs, particularly in light of what happened in Butler the July before. I can't imagine that's the first time it had ever dawned on anybody roofs are a major vulnerability.
Sure. Yeah. I would, especially after Butler, you would think you'd be thinking that fucking everywhere. This is over a year after that. The other thing that was weird right from the jump to me, I talked with you about this on the phone, but I'll never forget so he died on a Wednesday, and then Friday morning, like we said, that was when they said Tyler Robinson had been arrested. And then I had a wedding to go to on Saturday that was like 6 hours away, so I was going to get up early and drive there. So Friday night, I'm sitting in here, I'm working, and I see something on Twitter that his wife, Erika, is going to come out and give a statement. So I'm like, okay. So I pull up the live stream on YouTube, and I just remember seeing her walk in, and the only thing I felt was guilt, because right away, that thing in my gut that goes, what the fuck? Something ain't right here. This ain't real. I've never had that thought in a situation like this before. It was blinking on a 12.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this, and I'm like, and I'm going to Twitter, and everyone's like praising her. There's like a mass like campaign of people being like, "Oh my God, bravest woman ever," yada yada yada. And I remember shutting the computer afterwards and like just being quiet. And I'm like, that's an impure thought. It's so mean. This is a grieving widow. Don't think that. But then I'm driving to the wedding the next day, and I'm thinking about it in the car. I could not get it out of my head. And so Sunday morning, driving back from the wedding, back up here, I call up my buddy Danny Jones. And it was like the two of us were like coming out of the closet. Because I'm like, hey, man, we talk like every day.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, you watched that thing the other night? What thing? Oh, the thing with the wife? I'm like, yeah. What do you think? And he's like, bro, it was so weird. I'm like, oh my God, it was so weird to me too. Oh my God, I felt like I couldn't tell anyone about this. He's like, dude, something's off. And he's like, even my wife said it.
Wow.
And women pick up on that shit real good. They know that shit. And we were just talking about it, and I'm like, what is that? And, still the narrative was you'd go on social media and most people were like, oh, she's so brave. And then you get the WWE wedding with the Vicks and the fucking, no ugly crying.
Yeah.
I know people grieve weird, but like, at what point was it the WWE wedding or funeral? I'm sorry. Was it before that? Was it after that? At what point did you start saying to yourself, wait a minute, something ain't right there?
Yeah. So it wasn't that for me. I mean, I watched it. I watched the speech, and looking back at it, it sends all kinds of crazy alarm bells off. But at the time, whatever. And actually, the guy I was talking to when we were first learning about it in real time and the pictures were coming out, the videos were coming out, he called me back, I want to say Monday or Tuesday. So what is that, like the 15th maybe, something like that? It was a day or two before she was announced that she was going to be the person. And he said, hey, I've got some information out of TPUSA. I know who they're going to put in Charlie's place. Because we had talked about the day he died, we talked about who would take over TPUSA as just, even if it's just a placeholder. And he had mentioned Tyler Boyer. He had mentioned Benny Johnson. He had mentioned Justin Strife, the COO. He had just been appointed to this new executive role. Why not just put him in there for a little while? And then he had mentioned Erika Kirk. And I was like, who the hell is that? Like, who is Erika Kirk? I didn't know who Charlie's wife was. And then I saw her give that speech, and then he called me back a couple days later. He's like, they're going to give it to Erika. And I was like, why? And he was like, I was like, you know what? I actually probably still have that text. I think the initial part of the conversation was by text. He said, I was like, well, you know what? I think it's the right thing to do in the short run, because I viewed Tyler Boyer as an opportunist and kind of shady. Benny Johnson, I thought, was like a total disaster. And, TPUSA at the time, even if you didn't like Charlie, it had value. It had the ability to turn voters out for conservative causes, Republican candidates at the college level. It just did. And, some of the states where, are decided by 500 votes or 1,000 votes or 10,000 votes, turning out a couple college campuses might make the difference. I don't think he's the reason Trump won either election. People say that a lot, and he's credited with that, but I'm not sure that's true. But some of the states get pretty tight, and turning out a bunch of college kids could be helpful. And so I thought, okay, yeah, Erika's probably not bad. She didn't do a terrible job in that speech or whatever. But before the memorial, I had a friend who was going to go to the memorial and backed out and decided not to. He's like, this is too weird. Something way too weird is going on with this. I don't feel comfortable with it. Already booked a plane, already booked a hotel room, and just said, no, I'm not going. And so there was already this weirdness that was going around in advance of the big shebang. The WWE, what do you call it? WWE wedding?
WWE funeral. Sorry.
Funeral, whatever.
Felt like a wedding.
It did. I mean, she wore white.
Dressed like it too.
She wore white. But yeah, I mean, I think I look back and say, hey, let's assume this was an operation to kill Charlie, and everyone was in on it. Like everyone Charlie knew was in on it. They've done absolutely everything wrong to get away with it. Absolutely everything. Starting with bringing Erika out. Like, she's been a disaster. As you dig into her past, as you uncover her prior statements, as you look into inconsistencies in stories she tells, on down to how they met. I mean, frankly, Charlie was in on that inconsistency as well. So,
what was it? They were in a customs line in Israel or something?
Well, that's when she says she first saw him. But there's this story that their first date was at Bob's Burgers in New York City. And that, Charlie slid into her DMs and very slyly invited her to a job interview and then turned it into a date and said, I want to date you. I don't want to hire you. So this is like a cute fairy tale story. I think it's probably mildly illegal by HR standards.
Yeah,
but
I was going to say, seems like a cross line,
but we'll let him have it. We'll let him have it.
He didn't hire her, I guess. So
yeah, he didn't. So maybe he got away with it. But then Tyler Boyer is seen on a podcast saying, no, they went on a date before when she was here in August, the month before that, or 2 months before that. And I was hyping Charlie up for the date. They went to a gym together. And so, I mean, like, everything about everything she says falls apart under the slightest bit of scrutiny. And she's just strange acting.
Very strange.
I mean, even if she's an innocent grieving widow, she's the strangest innocent grieving widow of all time. So if you're trying not to draw scrutiny to the situation, running her out there is the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
Had they just put her away for like even a year, hey, we've decided we're going to let Erika Kirk run this thing. She's going to be the CEO, but we're giving her the year on a sabbatical to spend with her family. She'll be in charge. She'll be overseeing everything, but she is expected to keep no office hours. She's going to do no events. She's going to go and grieve. And Justin Strife is going to run the place in the meantime, or Tyler Boyer is going to run the place in the meantime. I don't think there would be a lot of scrutiny on this case. I think a lot of the scrutiny comes from the feeling you had that September 12th, the feeling your friend had that September 12th, the feeling your friend's wife had that September 12th, the feeling a lot of us had by the end of the WWE funeral. It was just too weird. And then by the time she's showing up at events, tossing out merch, coming out to fireworks, and I mean, it's everything went wrong. And then it's like they realize, oh, well, this version of Erika Kirk's not working, so let's overcorrect. Yeah. And let's go to, she's only going to wear black now. Whenever she's seen in public, she's going to wear black, except the time she's in her Little Bo Peep outfit. Then she's going to be Little Bo Peep if she's in Arkansas. Like, who is she? No one dresses that. You see how I'm dressed.
Yeah.
I wear hoodies. That's what I wear.
Yeah.
I wear hoodies and T-shirts. If you catch me in a Little Bo Peep outfit, something's gone terribly wrong. I'm not being myself. So I think there's I think what you perceived, maybe other people took longer to perceive, but I think it's sort of ubiquitous by now.
Yeah, and like you said, it's the optics of it too, that you just from a PR perspective, which shouldn't be what this is about, by the way. It should be about an investigation, trying to get to the truth here. But just at the top layer of PR, the fact that people around TPUSA presumably couldn't see that this was. She just made it worse every time she went out, to the point that she was still giving, live speeches on his show that's somehow still named after him, even though he's dead, in like April and May. I'm like, guys, it's been 7 months. The polling's in. This is a Jeb Bush.
It's not working.
Done.
This is Jeb Bush. Right. Please clap.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's got to be, I haven't covered this case a ton on the show. We talked about it probably about 3 times before, other than we were live on air when it happened. Obviously, we were like all stunned. I was with Nate and Chris from the religion business when that happened, September 10th. But, I didn't do like full podcasts on it. And then a couple things happened. My guy Alessi, who's been with me forever, was up in town. He lives down in Florida now, and he came up here, so we recorded one on his podcast when he was here, and he asked me about it a little bit, and we talked about it in some of those clips, especially the ones with Erika, went a little viral, where I gave some opinion. Then I had Clint Russell in here as well, and we talked about it for about 15 minutes. But until I had Joseph Scott Morgan in here to just break down the forensic side of it, we hadn't talked about it in depth. But you've done 150 plus episodes on this at this point, and you were talking about this right away. So, what was it like in October, to be raising those kinds of questions, even about someone who's like a grieving widow and all that, at a time where a lot of people might take that the wrong way, even if that is like what we are clearly many of us were clearly feeling and seeing. Was that a little nerve-wracking to talk about it that way?
I didn't talk about her.
You didn't?
I didn't. I gave her the benefit of the doubt for months. And
what changed?
The book tour in December. It was so bizarre, so weird. The interview with Barry Weiss, the Fox and Friends appearance. I watched all of it, and every single appearance she did that week. I think it was like December 10th to 15th, something like that. It was mid-December. Every single appearance she did that week was so bananas that I thought, I've got to. I would fight with my listeners, because at the end of my show, I'll do Q&A and I'll just pull up questions, and depending on how late I want to stay up. But sometimes I'll do 2 hours of just Q&A with people, just boop, 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 just questions. And I was fielding questions on a daily basis at the time. Erika's too weird. You're being too nice. She's not a grieving widow. She killed him. And I was like, guys, you can't say that. And I was like, I've never lost my spouse. My spouse is very much alive. We've been married 25 years. Everything's fine, that I don't know what I would be like if she was suddenly murdered the next day. I have no idea how I'd react. Maybe I would be weird. Maybe I would act strangely. I'm very, very much not a public crier. I've gotten sad a few times in public, and I'm the most awkward, sad public person you've ever seen. I hate it. I'm trying to stop it at the same time, and I just don't like it. It's a very vulnerable position, and if you don't like feeling vulnerable, you don't like being emotional in public. And, I kind of looked at her through those eyes. Maybe she's just very vulnerable. She's had a vulnerable childhood. She had vulnerable relationships. She's not very confident in her emotions. She doesn't know how to handle them, so she acts weird. This was not me just playing the game. This was not me just talking points. I genuinely thought she was acting weird, but I genuinely didn't know what to make of it and was unwilling to comment on it. And then the book tour happened. And I thought, no, there's something wrong here. Particularly the Barry Weiss interview. I mean, that was so performative to me, so strange. The love for our greatest ally and I mean, it was like so over the top, and I thought, no, there's something here. This is not right. I still at the time would not come out and say, and I don't believe I've ever said, she killed Charlie Kirk, or she planned to kill Charlie Kirk, or she was in on it. But I have allowed my mind to speculate. And
what does it speculate?
Well, I mean, it speculates that she doesn't have a very good alibi for where she was on September 8th and 9th. It speculates that she doesn't, frankly, have a very good alibi for where she was on September 10th.
Where did she say she was again?
She said she was on September 10th.
Yeah.
I think her current story maybe has not changed. She was at a clinic with her mom. She was watching the live stream, which is unusual because that live stream supposedly was not something they typically did. That was something new they were doing that day. And Terrell Farnsworth told Candace Owens that they were live streaming, quote, back to the ops in Arizona, that they were trying something new. And the fact that she's at a clinic with her very ill mother, and I do believe her mother's very ill. The fact that she was at a clinic with her very ill mother, but she's watching the live stream of her husband do something he's done, 1,000 times?
Right.
Like, why are you watching that one that day? I mean, Utah Valley University, fine university, not knocking it. It's not Harvard. It's not Ohio State. It's not UCLA. It's not one of the bigger, super high profile universities in the country. It's a good school in the heart of Utah that has some great students and professors, I'm sure. But it's not, if you're going on a college tour and you're talking on all the college tours, 100 college campuses a year or whatever he was doing, Utah Valley University is not one that would stand out and say, oh my gosh, this is the one I've got to watch live as it happens. Right. And so she says she's watching it and she's watching him throw out hats. So obviously they're live streaming the hat throwing. So who was live streaming the hat throwing? Because all the other cameras were just focused on Charlie. They were just set up on Charlie. So
where he was going to be sitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
not when he's out standing and
yeah.
throwing hats.
So whose camera is she watching? Whose camera is fixed on him? He's throwing out hats. And then she says she puts her phone face down because she's with her mom. And then she said Mikey called a few seconds later after it happened.
Mikey McCoy,
the Charlie's chief of staff. And I think a pretty close family friend of theirs. And that's a good story, but is that the Bob's Burger story? Did they actually go on a date in Scottsdale before they went to Bob's Burgers? Did they, it's a pretty cool story, but did you actually graduate summa cum laude, with a double degree from wherever, Arizona State? That's a pretty cool story, but was that really only your second pageant or was it your sixth? The problem with Erika is it's tough to believe her stories because so many of her stories don't hold up under scrutiny.
That's right.
And so, if someone asks, where were you on that day? You saying I was with my mom is not very compelling because you say a lot of things that when you scrutinize them don't really hold up. One of the things I would do if I was her PR person is I would get a hold of everything she's ever said publicly from the time she was 16 doing beauty pageants until yesterday. And I would somehow, whether you feed it into ChatGPT or whether you just create a spreadsheet or just memorize it, I would figure out what your story is. And I would make sure you either never address anything on that story ever again or you clarify it.
Yeah.
I would also, if I was TPUSA, call everybody into a conference room and say, the next person that lies is fired. The next person who tells a story that's inconsistent is fired. Like, we have a massive credibility gap. It's starting at the top, but it's bleeding through everybody. Andrew, your Twitter feed is a disaster. It is so easily disprovable on many occasions. So let's stop this. Let's stop just winging it. Let's get some discipline. Let's get some messaging, and let's stick to it. And if it's not on the sheet, you don't know. If they ask where you were on this day and it's not on the sheet, I don't know. I'll check my calendar and get back to you. Because we're only talking about what's on this sheet from now on. But that's supposedly where she was on September 10th. And I don't know that I believe it.
Have you had, I presume, people from TPUSA reach out to you behind the scenes?
Yes. Lots.
Lots of them. Like high up people as well, I take it. What's, without revealing specifics of stuff you want to keep private, like, what's the nature of that? Shut the fuck up? Or like, hey, we want to right your path here. You actually have this wrong. We could help you out with that. Like, what are the types of things they're saying to you?
I've been given a lot of corrections where I've speculated on things and they say, here's what actually happened. And I've subtly made those corrections without burning a source.
Got it.
I've had...
So meaning you had maybe sources that were around TPUSA or in it that maybe told you something that then wasn't true verifiably, and you're like, okay, so I don't want to burn them, but
Well,
we gotta-
or I had said something publicly on a podcast, and somebody said, "Well, you didn't quite get it right. Here's what really happened." And then, I can subtly make that change over the next few weeks without anyone really realizing that I've talked to someone. So that's happened a few times. And I've had good contact with a couple of particular people who have given me the temperature of what it's really like in there right now.
What's it like in there right now?
She's not super supported from some of the top people.
Including people that maybe are putting on a face publicly?
Oh yeah. That's what I'm told. The information's only as good as people tell me, but not super supported, not really running things is kind of the, you guys keep saying she's running it into the ground. She's not running much of anything. And that's the two big things. I mean, I've gotten specific piece of information I'm not going to talk about, but that's sort of the general consensus that I keep getting.
Got it. When he was shot, obviously we've seen all the video after that.
We use the word shot very loosely there.
Yeah, loosely there, but when he was hit and went down, and everyone sees the blood come out, and then you see the security team converge. They obviously ended up taking him, carrying his body back to the truck. There was no ambulance near there, I guess, at the time. So they take him to the truck, and what was it, 5 guys in the car with him?
Yeah.
Okay. What are some of the things there that you've taken issue with as far as what's been reported about what happened with his body just going from the point of attack to the car to the hospital?
I can't second guess a security team and say what I would have done differently because I've never worked personal security. I've never been trained for it. I don't know all the things that go into it. It's easier to hire someone to do it than try to figure it out yourself. But when you look at it, just based on their statements, there are a lot of things I think probably went wrong from the beginning. For example, we talked about the roofs. Mm-hmm. I think 3 or 4 people from TPUSA have been on record saying that they were concerned about the roofs. Well, if you're concerned about the roofs, you have 2 options. Well, 3 really. They took the 3rd option and it didn't work out. The first 2 options, though, could have kept them alive. Number 1 is you either solve the roof problem by putting your own people on the roofs, or you put somebody at a high position that has roof oversight. Like, I've done big events. I've been at big events. Bigger events than that, frankly, tens or hundreds of thousands of people. And I know the security protocol that we were told, hey, you'll have something in your ear. If you hear a certain word, that's stage clear. Everyone's gone. Show's over, folks. Sorry, you will not be getting a refund. Goodbye. Why wasn't that in place? Why didn't they have somebody at the highest point? If they're worried about the roofs, figure out which roof is the highest and stick somebody up there. And the second you see somebody in all black climbing on a roof, whatever the code word is, purple, 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 show's over, folks. Charlie's gone. Sorry to end it 8 minutes into the program, but he's in Salt Lake City before anyone knows what happened. If you're not going to do that, then you have to conduct the entire thing from a different security posture, in my opinion. You have to, if you're not going to have somebody at High Point watching the roofs, or you're not going to have somebody stationed on the roofs, you have to have security run in mind with the roofs are a primary concern. So if maybe you're watching roofs from the ground. Maybe you have somebody stationed in a different place. Maybe you move the tent. Maybe you delay the event an hour to reconvene from a slightly different angle or a slightly different location. I don't know. But I know the 3rd option is the one they chose, and it was, hey, Charlie, we don't like the looks of these roofs. These roofs look dangerous. You look like you're at risk. Here, sit here. Do your show here. We'll make sure nobody's overlooking the roofs. We'll make sure nobody's on the roofs. Just have a seat here, sir. You'll be fine. That's not it. I mean, I've said this many times on my show. If I'm hiring security people, I'd rather have somebody smart than beefy. The fact that you can roll around and shoot a gun while you're rolling is not as impressive to me as watching around as I'm walking down the street. Not as impressive as having situational awareness and enough of an IQ that you can detect, hey, something's not right. I don't feel good. Let's go a different direction. Let's get out of here.
So his IQ is pretty good then.
He's a very smart guy.
Struck me that way.
We IQ people. We IQ test people. No, but I mean, that's more of a concern to me, because once the shooting starts, you've lost.
That's right.
The game's over. I tell people this with a lawyer all the time. Don't get sued. Once you get sued, you've already lost. I don't care if you win, you've lost. It's going to cost you a lot of money. It's very inconvenient.
Lawyers win.
Yeah. There with free speech and journalism, there are some protections because you can always, like anti-slap statutes, for example. I'm sure you're familiar with what you do. But I think from a pre-show posture, it seems to me evident on its face that there was a failure. But that's not me coming and saying Brian Harpole's group failed Charlie and got him killed. That's not the point. My point is, as we're second guessing and looking, the next time somebody does an event and someone doesn't feel comfortable with the roofs, let's evaluate the roofs. Right. Let's think about it, and let's evaluate whether we should do the show at all or should we put people in different places. The excuse they keep giving that, we only have permission to be in this area right here. Well, Tyler Robinson didn't have permission to get on the Losi Center roof either, but he did. That's their story. So if he doesn't have permission to get up there, yet somehow manages to, you got 12 or 13 people with you, and you can't put one person on the highest point in the facility that's overlooking the tent. The Losi Center would have been a pretty good place. You'd have had operational oversight over the entire field. Well, that sounds like a great place to be.
Right. When did this particular security team, though? Because again, this was a new tour he was going on. This was the first one. They put this team together shortly before that, right? Those guys hadn't all worked together for Charlie Kirk prior to this point, or am I misremembering that?
I think the base of the team had worked for Charlie Kirk for a while.
But not every single guy on the team together working for him.
I don't know whether we can say they've never worked for him, but I know that they hadn't spent years working with him. Okay. I think we can safely say that.
Got it. All right, so you talked about the 30-06 and some of the issues with, wondering how the hell that bullet could have been stopped and all that. And you mentioned, what was the gentleman's name again who initially had the shot from another?
Chris Martinson.
So you mentioned his theory. What do you, bad visual to give, but gun to your head, what do you think actually killed him?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. I don't think it was a gunshot. I don't necessarily think it was a single modality. I think it could have been multiple things taking place at once.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, if you've made an operational decision to kill Charlie Kirk, are you going to have the entire operation rest on a single point of failure? In other words, are we going to put a sniper on the roof and hope he kills him? People get shot point blank in the head and live. If the goal is to kill him,
that's right.
You want him dead. You do not want him walking out of there. And so maybe you have built-in redundancy. When you get on an airplane, if there's no critical function that rests on a single point of failure, there's backup, usually triplicate backup. That's why planes don't fall out of the sky very often. Cars are different. Cars have single points of failure, but you just pull over to the side of the road. You can't pull the plane over to the side of the road. It's going to fall out of the sky from 35,000 feet. So most critical functions are redundant, and I think in this situation you would probably have redundancy. And so it's undeniable to me that something moved. Something caused his shirt to move in a very unnatural way that's inconsistent with a bullet. The Rode microphone, actually travel with them. I have them with me. The Rode microphone goes from his right collar all the way towards the middle of his neck. Those have mass. They're not easy to move. His necklace, which is hanging down.
Wait, they have what? I'm sorry.
They have mass. I mean, they're not styrofoam.
Like MASS?
Yeah, mass.
Okay,
yeah. I mean, they have substance. They're not the heaviest things in the world, but they're not the lightest things in the world. To get one to move at that pace in 2 frames of a camera, you're talking a 30th of a second, a 15th of a second, to move from your right collarbone to the middle of your neck in a 15th of a second or 30th of a second. That's very, very fast. Something caused that. Did it explode? Did something eject out of it? I don't know. Was it damaged? Did it remain whole? I don't know. It would be easy to prove it remained whole. Just those record on a 32-bit waveform. Just release it, or show us that it kept recording. I think you could fake it, but at least you could try to show that it didn't explode. So his microphone moved. His necklace, that the charm was hanging down in the pictures, down below his sternum, like right below his xiphoid process right there. It shot up towards his neck at basically the speed of light. I mean, it was so fast. What caused that? That's not a gunshot wound to the neck. That necklaces don't jump that high when you're struck in the neck. There are some angles that look like the necklace on the back of his neck, the chain on the back of his neck goes straight back off his neck, or at least his shirt goes straight back off of his neck, and you can still see the neck, and I don't see a hole. So if the gunshot wound to the neck is supposedly causing all this stuff, why is this happening before a hole appears in his neck? Now, it's possible the hole was super small, but it didn't look super small with that much blood coming out of it. So there's just a lot of problems with the gunshot narrative that I default to the fact that there's something that was acting on his body. There was some force that was acting on his body. Whether that force came from the microphone, from the necklace, whether it was some high-tech force that we don't even know exists, some sort of, for lack of a better word, like an EMP or something that blasted at him all at once. I really don't know the answer to that.
Is there a way that, whether it's in like Chris Martinson's lane of an actual second shooter down there, different gun, is there a way that if someone's shooting from much closer than 138 yards, as it was alleged where Tyler Robinson shot, that, the kinetic energy or types of things that could happen could explain the movement of the mic, of the shirt, of the chain in the back and all that in a more satisfying way than what they say happened from 138 yards away?
I think the closer you are, the more force a 30 caliber round arrives with, the more likely it is to blow out the back of his neck. So I'm not entirely satisfied with that, but I think, I don't think he was shot with a bullet. If he was, it was a redundancy, because the injuries are, in my opinion, and the people I've talked to several medical professionals last couple of days since the prosecution filed their motion that included a few lines from the medical exam.
They filed it.
Yeah, I mean, there's injuries from the top of his heart to the top of his head. It's really difficult for me to accept that all of that took place from a single gunshot wound.
So injuries, meaning like internal bleeding,
Yes.
bruises, everything, like a litany of things.
Hemorrhaging. I'm not a doctor, and they were big words, and I had to look up every word just to understand what they were saying. But I mean, even like the parietal lobe of his brain above it was damaged. I mean, you're talking like 2 feet worth of injuries. It's something that's just, to me, unprecedented. Like I looked and looked for examples of those types of injuries from gunshot wounds. You can't find the collection of them in any single gunshot wound to the neck that I could find. I did not look at every medical exam ever conducted in history, but
No, it'd be interesting. It's way above my pay grade.
yeah,
But
way
that's
above mine as well.
That's interesting that it's that.
It's a tremendous amount of damage. The most telling thing that they filed in their motion was that his C2 to C6 was obliterated.
Is that what they wrote?
Yeah,
Wow.
the left side, so the side where the wound was, from C2, which is way up here, to C6, which is down here, the left side of all those vertebrae were completely obliterated, and his spinal cord was traumatically absent in that range, meaning there was no connection from his brain to his body at all.
So even beyond death, when he was hit, he was a quadriplegic. Am I hearing that right, or did I totally fuck that up?
Yes, according to the medical exam.
Okay.
But then now go back and watch the video. And I can't play the video on YouTube, neither can you, because YouTube doesn't like that video. But if you go back and watch the video, after this all happens, after his C2 to C6 spinal cord is completely gone, traumatically absent, completely transected.
He fences.
Do what?
He fences, right?
Yeah. He clenches both fists. He flexes his elbows. His knees stay out. He stays erect. His head stays up.
And there's no way, again, way above my pay grade, there's no medical explanation for that being physically possible?
No, I talked to a neurosurgeon yesterday after that came out, or 2 days ago, whenever it was. I talked to a professor of that I can't remember what his title was, but it was long. And I had them go over this with me line by line. And both of them agreed, and the professor started giving me citations to PubMed papers that demonstrate that it's impossible. That once you lose, that once it transects, you have about 1/10 of a second before everything goes flaccid. And the way he described it was, he said, I'm not saying flaccid like he would have dropped the microphone. I'm saying he would have lost all muscle tone from the neck down. Like every muscle would have turned into just goo. It would have just all complete. His knees would have collapsed. He would have fallen immediately off the chair. His head would have immediately fallen over. He wouldn't have held onto the microphone and then slowly let it go. Like we watched the video together.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have slowly let go of the microphone. Everything would have collapsed. The gravity would have taken over to his body instantly. Like he said, like 1/10 to 1/10.5 of a second is all you have left. Once those electrical charges are gone, the body's done. It's no longer receiving any input whatsoever from the brain. So I look at that and I say, okay, well, something obviously was still acting on his body. I'd speculated in October because of a medical professional who contacted me, and he said at the time that it looked more like electrocution than a gunshot to him because
electrocution.
Yeah, he said because of the flexion, and this was after the Andrew Kolvet tweet is what prompted him to reach out, because he said, hey, if he had that much damage to his vertebrae, his spinal cord likely was transected and he wouldn't have been holding on to anything. Something had to be powering his nervous system that's not his brain. And the only thing he was holding on to that had power was the microphone. He said, have you looked into the fact that the microphone may have lit him up? And so I started looking up video of singers who would touch those same SM58 Shure microphones. And they did a lot of the same stuff. They would, and fall back to the stage. So I don't know. I really don't know what it was. But I'm confident, 99.9% confident it was not a 30-06 to the neck. That would not produce, in my opinion, and I'm not a doctor, but I have talked to them, and they're confident as well, it wouldn't produce those damages. Like something else was going on. It's possible he was struck with something in the neck other than a 30-06. It's possible he was electrocuted. It's possible something happened to the Rode microphone. It's possible something else was strapped to his body that we don't even know was strapped to his body because they were trying something new and streaming back to the ops in Arizona. But to me, the 30-06 narrative died with that filing. And keep in mind, when a medical examiner does the exam, they're not watching the video. They're just describing what they see. Yeah. And they might very well have seen that damage. But they didn't know he was still flexing and had this apparent decorticate posture after his C2 to C6 was traumatically absent. So, to answer the question, how did he die? I don't know.
What'd you make of the bullet? Did we have a picture of that, Deef? The bullet they released at the preliminary hearing where they put out, it was with like a measuring stick. Because again, I do live in a country where they released, they talked about a magic bullet, so. Yeah.
Well, this is not only,
it does go up a little
This is
bit.
not only a magic bullet, it's a missing bullet. The lady who tested it for the ATF, or the lady who testified about the testing for the ATF, read from a report where 7 fragments were removed from Charlie's body.
7 fragments.
Yeah. But she only received 4 in an envelope, in a manila envelope. She received 4 of the 7. I would think in a murder investigation, you would want, if you pull something out of his body, that would go along with the rest of the evidence. Where are the other 3 pieces? Are these the same 4 pieces that were pulled out of his body? I don't know. It's possible the autopsy photos will show that, yes, in fact, those were exactly what was pulled out of his body. But we also don't know the chain of custody of his body. He wasn't taken by ambulance. He was surrounded by security people who didn't guard the roof. So that's the casing. Yeah.
The one that was at, sorry, I forgot to say, the one that actually showed like the aftermath of it, they released the trial. When we did solo number 23 after JSM, I think I put that link in that Google Drive folder. That would have been like 3 weeks ago. So it should be there. But it shows it next to like an actual measurement, so you can see like how the bullet allegedly changed and all that. But like, so do you think you would use this word a few minutes ago? I want to make sure I understood this. You said there could have been something that was a redundancy. Yeah. Meaning like maybe a bullet was fired after he was already hit with something else.
Well, so this would be an example of redundancy. I'm not saying this is it, but let's throw everything in together.
Yeah, that's it.
You've got let's say the mic electrocuted him, he was shot in the neck, the Rode microphone exploded, they broke his neck under the table,
Broke his neck under the table.
well, what I'm saying is every theory out there it could be pooled into this redundancy. In other words, he's walking in and he's not walking out.
Right. Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.